when hospital kids humiliated a boy on chemo for being too hopeful, Denzel Washington walked in, and what he did left the entire hospital speechless. The fluorescent lights in the pediatric oncology ward buzzed faintly, casting a pale wash over linoleum floors and pastel walls. The air smelled faintly of hand sanitizer and strawberry shampoo. Nurses moved quietly between rooms, their sneakers barely squeaking against the polished floor. It was early, too early, but Liam was already awake. He always was. 10 years old, skinny as a pencil, with freckles scattered across his cheeks like constellations, Liam sat cross-legged on his hospital bed, a sketch pad balanced on his knees. He was drawing another superhero. This one had a bald head, a chemo port, and a cape that looked like it was made from an old hospital blanket. He called him Captain Comeback. Every few minutes, Liam looked up and smiled at passing nurses, at sleepy-eyed patients rolling past in wheelchairs, at the janitor mopping near the vending machine. "Morning, sunshine," Nurse Maria said, stepping into his room with a thermometer and a tired grin. Liam grinned wider. "Guess what Captain Comeback's new power is?" Maria raised an eyebrow. "Surprise me." "Making grumpy people smile in under 5 seconds." Maria laughed under her breath, brushing his forehead with the back of her hand. He's got his work cut out for him then. But not everyone was charmed. In the teen room down the hall, a couple of older boys whispered behind cupped hands. One of them, a lanky kid named Jordan, peeked around the corner and rolled his eyes. "Here comes the chemo clown," he muttered. His friend snorted. "Bet his cape's got apple juice stains." They laughed, soft, cutting, just loud enough to land. Liam heard. He always did. But his smile didn't break, not in front of them. He just flipped to a new page in his sketch pad and started again. This one was a villain, thin, shadowy, with a mean sneer. He called him Doubt. And Captain Comeback? Well, he always found a way to win. Even if it was just by showing up the next morning, bald head held high, smile ready. Because that's what heroes do, even when nobody's cheering for them yet. Maria leaned against the break room counter, fingers wrapped around a lukewarm coffee cup. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at the floor like the tile might give her answers she didn't already have. Across from her, another nurse, Jared, sipped his drink with the kind of detachment that came from too many shifts and too few breaks. "You hear what they said to Liam?" Maria asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. Jared didn't look up. "Jordan again?" Maria nodded. "Calling him the chemo clown, said he draws like a preschooler." Jared exhaled through his nose, annoyed but resigned. "Teenagers, man. They're going through it too." "Yeah, but Liam," she shook her head. "He's 10. He still believes in magic. He shouldn't have to carry that." She didn't say more, didn't say how Liam had smiled through it, how he'd thanked her for her super nurse powers after a rough round of meds, how he always said good morning to the vending machine like it was a friend, how the light in his eyes was getting a little harder to find lately, because even sunshine has limits. At home, Liam's mother noticed it too, how he went quiet on the ride back, how he stared out the window longer than usual. His sketchbook stayed zipped in his backpack for the rest of the night. He poked at his dinner, said he was tired, and climbed into bed early. "You okay, sweetheart?" she asked from the doorway, voice soft. Liam nodded under the blanket. "Just sleepy." She didn't press, just kissed his forehead and turned off the light. Back in the ward the next morning, he smiled again. He always did. He greeted every nurse, complimented another kid's dinosaur pajamas, and drew a new superhero before lunch. But Maria noticed something. His sketches were quieter now. No bold colors, just pencil. The heroes stood still, like they were waiting for something. She placed a fresh set of colored pencils on his tray without a word. Liam looked up at her, that trademark grin flickering. Just for a second, and then it was back. Because hope for Liam, wasn't an accessory. It was armor. The hospital lobby buzzed with its usual rhythm. Heels clacked on tile. A child cried softly in the corner, and the front desk printer jammed for the third time that morning. No one noticed the black SUV that pulled up out front. No flashing cameras, no entourage, just a quiet man in a dark hoodie and a baseball cap stepping through the automatic doors like he belonged there. Denzel Washington didn't come with announcements. That wasn't his style. He was in town filming a courtroom drama a few cities over. Someone on the crew had a cousin working here, had mentioned the pediatric wing, the kids fighting battles way bigger than themselves. That stuck with Denzel, so he came, alone. The nurses blinked when they saw him. One almost dropped a clipboard. "You're," she started, voice shaky. He smiled, warm and easy. "Just here to visit." He kept it low-key, walked room to room, sat beside a girl with a stuffed giraffe, and told her a joke so dry it made her snort juice out of her nose. Signed a Spider-Man notebook for a kid who barely lifted his head off the pillow. Fist bumped a teenager who didn't even look up from his Xbox but whispered, "Holy crap," after he left. No press, no speeches, just presence. It wasn't until Nurse Maria caught him on his way to the elevator that the visit changed. "You should meet Liam," she said. "Room 407. Denzel raised an eyebrow. "What's his story?" Maria shrugged. "He's different, doesn't stop smiling, even when he probably should." That made Denzel pause. Smiling even when you shouldn't, that meant something. That was a story worth hearing. He nodded once, gently, and made his way down the hall. No one followed. The only sound was the squeak of his shoes and the faint beep of monitors behind closed doors. He stopped outside room 407. Inside, a boy sat hunched over a sketch pad, pencil moving in tight, thoughtful circles. Denzel knocked twice on the open doorframe. The boy looked up and smiled. Liam's grin hit Denzel like a spotlight. Bright, honest, not forced. The kind of smile that came from somewhere deeper than circumstance. "Hi," Liam said like he was greeting a friend, not a two-time Oscar winner. "You're Denzel Washington." Denzel chuckled, stepping in. Guilty. Liam patted the edge of his bed. "You can sit. I've got extra room. As long as you don't bump the IV, this thing's sensitive." Denzel took the offered seat. The sketch pad in Liam's lap was flipped open to a half-finished drawing. Another superhero, mid-flight, cape whipping in the wind. "What's his name?" Denzel asked. "Still working on it," Liam replied. "Something cool, like the Comeback Kid. He doesn't just fight villains, he beats the odds." Denzel nodded slowly. "Strong name." Liam shrugged. "I'm trying. I've got this thing with cancer right now, so gotta stay busy." Denzel looked at him, really looked. Liam's skin was pale. His arms were thin, but his eyes, they had a fire. "You a fighter?" Denzel asked. Liam smirked. "I'm gonna beat cancer like it's the final boss." Denzel laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was real from the gut. That's a movie line if I've ever heard one. "Then cast me," Liam said with a grin, "but I want my own stunts." They talked about movies, superheroes, sketches. Liam did most of the talking. Denzel didn't mind. He listened. But underneath the jokes, underneath the fast wit, Denzel felt something else. Not fear, not sadness. Something quieter. Like Liam knew things people his age shouldn't have to know. Like his hope wasn't just painted on, it was built, brick by brick, over long nights and hard days. When the nurse came by to check vitals, Liam waved her off with a, "We're in a scene right now." She laughed and shook her head. Denzel stayed longer than he meant to. As he stood to leave, Liam held up his sketch pad. "I'll finish it tonight," he said. "Then you can come back tomorrow and name him." Denzel's voice was soft. "You got a deal." As he walked out of room 407, something stuck with him. That boy wasn't drawing heroes. He was one. The halls of the pediatric ward were quieter in the late afternoon. the buzz of visitors fading into the low hum of machines and hushed voices. Denzel returned with a small package tucked under one arm, a fresh leather-bound sketchbook, his signature scrawled inside the front cover in bold black ink. He had found it at a little bookstore across town, nothing fancy, just something that said, "You matter." He was halfway down the corridor when he heard the voices, low, bitter, not loud enough to draw attention, but loud enough to sting. "Seriously? What's the point?" one voice muttered. "He acts like this is some Disney movie." A second voice chuckled. "Yeah, newsflash, man. You're not a hero, you're a statistic." There was a pause, then the unmistakable sound of quiet laughter, the kind that doesn't need volume to hit hard. Denzel stopped walking. He didn't need to peek around the corner to know who they were talking about. He stood there, still as stone, the sketchbook pressed tight against his side. The two teens, Jordan and another older boy, leaned against the vending machine, arms crossed, smirking like they'd just said something clever. Neither noticed the man standing 10 feet away, listening, watching. Denzel didn't move, didn't speak. He just let the moment settle. It was the kind of cruelty that didn't shout. It whispered, the kind that left marks without bruises. He thought about Liam's sketch, the way his fingers trembled slightly when he shaded in the cape, the way he smiled even when his voice faltered, the way he lit up when someone treated him like more than a diagnosis, and here were these kids cutting him down with nothing but words. Denzel finally turned away, walking in the opposite direction, shoulders stiff. He didn't confront them, not yet. He'd learned long ago that some fights aren't won by yelling. They're won by showing people who someone really is and letting that truth do the talking. He stopped by Maria's desk. "You free for a second?" he asked, voice low. She looked up, instantly sensing something in his tone. "Of course." Denzel held out the sketchbook. "But first, can you get this to Liam?" Maria flipped through the sketchbook slowly, her fingers brushing the signature inside the cover. "I'll make sure he gets it," she said. But Denzel wasn't looking at the sketchbook anymore. He was looking past her, through the glass panel in the break room door, where the two teens were now slouched in their chairs, laughing over something on a phone. "You've seen it too, haven't you?" he asked quietly. Maria didn't need to ask what he meant. She nodded. "They've been at it for a while," not loud, not enough to get written up, but enough to hurt. "Why hasn't anyone stepped in?" Maria sighed. "Because Liam doesn't complain. He just smiles through it." Denzel said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Smiling shouldn't be a survival tactic." Maria nodded again, this time slower. He spent the next hour speaking to nurses, aides, even one of the custodians who'd seen Liam drawing alone in the hallway after a rough treatment. And what emerged was a pattern. Subtle slights, quiet snickers, muted cruelty. Liam hadn't told anyone, he'd just absorbed it. And still, he smiled. But Denzel had seen that kind of silence before, the kind that tries to keep everyone else comfortable while one person pays the price. He wasn't going to let that happen here. Not this time. So he made a few calls, one to a friend at a local news station, another to a pediatric cancer survivor he once worked with on a PSA. One more to someone at Warner Brothers. He didn't want attention, he wanted awareness. He wanted something undeniable, a spotlight that no one could ignore. He asked the staff to help coordinate a small event, just something simple. A movie night, a few clips, some visitors. But it would be more than that. It would be a moment built around Liam, not because he needed protection, but because he deserved recognition, not for fighting cancer, for staying kind in the face of cruelty. Because real heroes don't need capes. Sometimes they just need to be seen. The hospital auditorium wasn't much, just 30 folding chairs, a pull-down projector screen, and a table in the back stacked with juice boxes and popcorn bags. But that morning, it felt like something more, something bigger. Word had spread fast. "There's a surprise screening in the auditorium today," Staff only said one thing: don't miss it. Liam had no idea what to expect when Maria wheeled him in. His sketch pad was tucked under one arm, IV pole rolling along beside him, beeping softly. A few nurses clapped gently as he entered, and someone handed him a paper crown. "Guest of honor," they said with a wink. Liam laughed. "Do I get to pick the movie too?" Maria smiled. "Just wait." The lights dimmed. The room fell quiet. Then the screen flickered to life. It started simply, a black screen, soft piano music underneath. Then a montage of faces, a WNBA star holding up a sign that said, "Stay strong." A young actor Liam instantly recognized from a superhero show. "When I was a kid, I spent 6 months in a hospital bed. I still believe hope is a superpower." More faces followed. Athletes, musicians, former patients, nurses, survivors, each one with a single message in their own voice. Stay hopeful. You're not alone. The montage built slowly, the voices overlapping now, forming a chorus. Hope wasn't being whispered anymore. It was being declared. Then the final clip. The screen cut to Denzel, seated in what looked like a quiet dressing room. He looked straight into the camera, calm, steady. "I've met a lot of brave people in my life, but some people," he paused, "some people survive because they have hope, and some people give hope." He smiled. "Liam, you do both." The screen faded to black. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It was full of awe, of realization, of something shifting in the air. Liam sat still in his chair, eyes wide, lips parted in disbelief. He wasn't just a patient anymore. He was seen. And this wasn't just a screening. This was a tribute. The lights came up slowly, the soft hum of the projector winding down as the room returned to itself. But the silence lingered. Liam blinked like he was still trying to process what had just happened. His hand hovered near his chest, resting over the crown he still wore. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The message had already landed. Around the room, eyes were glued to him, some teary, others stunned, nurses, doctors, staff, even the teens from the ward who'd shuffled in, expecting another cheesy hospital event. They were here too, including Jordan. At the back of the room, leaning with arms crossed, Jordan wasn't smirking anymore. His eyes were locked on Liam. There was no punchline now, no whisper, no scoff. Just a quiet, sinking expression, the kind that comes when someone realizes they'd been on the wrong side of something important. Liam didn't even glance at him. He was still staring at the screen like he wasn't sure it had really happened. A young girl leaned over and whispered, "That was you on the screen. They were talking about you." Liam smiled, small this time. Not his usual stage grin. This one was softer, almost shy. Maria stepped up to the front, clearing her throat gently. "Liam, on behalf of everyone here, and everyone who's ever needed a little light on their darkest days, we just want to say thank you for being exactly who you are." The room filled with gentle applause, not loud, not forced, sincere. Jordan sat down slowly, his hands resting on his knees. He looked different now, like someone waking up from something. His friends exchanged glances, but didn't say much. The weight in the room had shifted. Respect isn't always loud. Sometimes it just fills a space where mockery used to live. As Liam was wheeled out of the auditorium, crown still in place, a nurse behind him whispered to no one in particular, "That kid doesn't just beat odds, he rewrites them." And no one disagreed. The morning sun slipped through the blinds, painting soft stripes across Liam's blanket. The room was still, the kind of quiet that comes before the bustle of rounds and breakfast carts. Liam stirred, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and blinked at something resting on his pillow. A folded piece of paper, and beneath it, a spiral-bound sketch pad. He sat up slowly, heart already racing. His name was written on the front in blocky letters, all caps. Inside the sketch pad, right there on the first page, was his superhero, the one he'd drawn in rough pencil outlines last week. But now, the lines were cleaner, sharper. Colored in with careful shading, muscles and motion added, the hospital gown turned cape, billowing in a swirl of dust and stars. It was beautiful and different. Beneath the drawing was a note, scrawled in fast, imperfect handwriting. "You made me believe again. Sorry, I forgot how. Jordan." Liam stared at it for a long time, jaw tight, blinking hard. He didn't say anything when Maria walked in with his morning meds, just held the note close, like it might vanish if he let go. Later that day, the group art table near the playroom was already busy with crayons, sketch pads, and quiet chatter. Liam rolled up beside it, sketchbook in his lap. He didn't expect Jordan to be there, but he was, already seated, already sketching. Their eyes met, just for a second, no words. Jordan slid a blank sheet across the table toward Liam. "You in?" he asked, voice soft. Liam nodded. They drew side by side for nearly an hour, saying almost nothing, sharing colored pencils, like nothing had ever been broken. And in that quiet space between pencil strokes and shy glances, something healed. It didn't take a speech, just a page, and the courage to start again. Denzel returned the following Friday. No press, no camera crew, just a baseball cap, a plain gray hoodie, and a familiar quiet confidence. He stopped by the front desk, signed the visitor log, and made his way to room 407, like he'd never left. Liam was waiting. He looked thinner, paler, but the fire in his eyes, still burning. "Didn't think you'd actually come back," Liam teased. Denzel grinned. "I said I'd name that superhero, didn't I?" They talked about the new sketchbook, about Jordan, about how group art was now the most popular hour in the ward. But then Liam went quiet, hands fidgeting in his lap. "I don't know if I'm going to win this fight," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "but I'm still going in swinging." Denzel nodded slowly. That's how legends are made. They sat in silence for a while, not uncomfortable, just full. Liam reached for the folder beside his bed, pulled out a single sheet, handed it over. It was a drawing, Denzel as a superhero, trench coat flaring like a cape, eyes steady, hands glowing with something that looked a lot like light itself. Liam had even given him a name, the Listener. Denzel looked down at the drawing, then up at Liam, and for a moment, words failed him. He just smiled. They laughed together quietly, surrounded by 4 poles, monitors, and the low hum of machines. Around them, drawings were taped to walls, crayon masterpieces, pencil sketches, stories scribbled in color. Hope wasn't decoration here, it was architecture. The camera pulls back, past the art table, past the nurse's station, past the closed door of room 407. 2 figures in quiet conversation, one boy, one man. And between them, something unshakable, because hope isn't a weakness, it's a choice. And Liam? He chose it every single day. This story was brutal, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.